Prepare for liftoff, because today we're gonna turn this space into outer space.
That's right, we're building a sci-fi spaceship set
right here in the garage, made entirely out of junk that we found for free just laying around on the street.
This project's a little bittersweet though, because my friend who owns the garage sold the property and we're gonna have to move the Geek Garage very soon.
But I've always wanted to see if I could build a spaceship set, and the time has finally come. What?
Can I do a cosplay to go along with it?
I was just thinking that. Are you Vulcan mind melding me? What's going on here?
No, I would never.
All right, so the inspiration for this project came while scouting some sound stages, and we stumbled upon this standing spaceship set. It was actually used in Firefly as a reaver ship, which I totally geeked out over. But what really blew my mind was that up close, all the greebles were just made of painted junk. It was like plastic bottles and milk crates. This was the light bulb moment where I knew this project was doable, and I was dead set on making one someday.
First and foremost, I have to decide on the aesthetic for the ship.
Do I want it to be minimalist and sterile like the Discovery 1? Streamlined and luxurious like the USS Enterprise? Rugged and beat up like the Millennium Falcon? Or industrial and corporate like the Nostromo?
I think the fact that we're making it out of junk means that it's more feasible to go with the latter.
For a large build like this in an existing location, I like to start with a photo of the space on my iPad in Procreate, and I just start sketching on it. This is the early design phase, so anything goes. I'm just having fun and letting my creativity roam. And yeah, not everything in this design is gonna end up in the final build. Some of it even changes while I'm drawing, like that floor-to-ceiling ladder in the back. Now, this isn't a complete blue sky session. I do keep in mind the limitations of the project, like the immovable objects I'll be integrating, as well as the materials, which in this case will be almost entirely free junk.
I'm always amazed at what you can find on the curb here in LA. For example, I was walking my dog and found this giant sheet of corrugated plastic. This is gonna be perfect for walls of our set. There's also a shocking amount of vacuums that get thrown out. I guess there's no vacuum repairman anymore, but these make great sci-fi props. There's a bunch of hoses, different shapes. Vacuums themselves kind of look futuristic, so if you paint them, they're just great props or set dressing. I also found this walker just sitting on the sidewalk. Now, this will be perfect for the top of our ladder that I imagine goes down to the lower level of our spaceship.
Hey, waiter, you know how we always find such cool stuff on the curb in LA?
Because rich people are wasteful?
Yes, that, but also people here are always moving and they'd rather ditch their stuff than haul it with them. But luckily we didn't have to do that thanks to today's sponsor, Units Moving and Portable Storage.
Units helped us securely transport all our treasures in one of their spacious, weather-resistant containers. Their amazing local team delivered it right to our door. All we had to do was load her up and let our dedicated rep know when it was ready for pickup.
Yeah, I was so happy we didn't have to tow a trailer or drive a moving truck across the country. Instead, we got to just relax and enjoy our epic road trip.
And when we got to our new home, we needed extra time to whip the new garage into shape, but that was no problemo because they kept our container in their immaculate local storage facility until we were ready. And yes, it's climate controlled, which in hot Atlanta was a huge bonus.
Plus, we can swing by the warehouse whenever we needed stuff from the container, and they had free coffee.
Whether you need some extra space to store your dragon's hoard of collectibles, board games, and costumes, or are planning a whole move, we can't recommend Units enough. Get your free quote at unitstorage.com.
Now, back to the video. Obviously, this area is gonna need a lot of cleanup before I can begin building, so time for a time lapse. Once I got everything mostly out of the way, I covered the unfinished walls with those scraps that every woodworker says they'll use someday. And today I finally did.
Obviously, I can't have a big wooden wall in the back of our spaceship, so I'm gonna paint the garage door gray with this free can of paint I got from EcoSet. Now, it says 317 on it. I don't know if that's a month and a year, but sounds like it's still liquid, so hopefully it works.
Now, I pretty much just covered anything that was wood with gray paint. That's all I did here.
I also have a bunch of sheets of foam lying around that I'm gonna cut into shapes like this. It's a little more futuristic. And then I will mount these to the door to give it sort of a sci-fi texture. And what's nice about these is they're light, so they won't add any weight to the door, so I can easily still open it. And they might also provide a little bit of soundproofing. Not much, because they're very thin, but anything helps.
Next, I put up a set flat, which is blocked by these poorly placed stack of crates. But here's the shot from the back. If you want to learn how to make a basic set flat, I'll be posting a video up on Patreon. Next, I built a bulkhead divider to separate the space into two sections. I didn't have enough room to create the full octagonal shape I wanted, and honestly, I'm not happy with what I made. Like, what the heck is even that? Sure, it's a sci-fi looking piece, but it has no real world motivation and would just be getting in the crew's way. Though I will say, my idea for using thumbtacks as rivets on it did turn out pretty cool. Now, the key to achieving that industrial spaceship look is all about texture. You want to create surfaces that are going to catch the light and look great on screen, while also looking really functional within the ship. Now, you could build all these pieces by hand or with the help of a 3D printer or vacuum form machine,
but I'm gonna show you the cheap and easy DIY method. There are tons of common everyday items that you would normally throw away without a second thought that'll work perfectly for this. But look at, we've got, these are like little containers when you get produce. I'll show you what this actually looks like after it's been painted in on the wall, because it looks really cool. You've got all these ribbings on here that almost look like little cooling heat sinks on the side. Look at this. This is the top of an egg carton from Costco. Look at how much detail
These octagonal shapes have. You throw a coat of paint on it and boom, it looks awesome.
To make building your set easier, you can make what I like to call component pieces. Here's one from another set. This looks like it was maybe from a boiler room. It consists of these little lights, labels, you got buttons, dials, and on the back is all the wiring, so the Grip and Electric team can get this thing lit up.
Here's an example of a component panel, and yes, it's complete with hidden Mickeys. What's nice about this method is you can do all your assembly and detail work at the bench, and when you're done,
You can go and install them on the final set.
I made some quick and dirty ceiling panels by gluing greebles onto some foam core. These were just to add some texture and won't really be seen, so they only got a lazy base coat.
This isn't just limited to sets either. Upcycling junk is a great way to make sci-fi props. Take for instance this tape dispenser. With a little bit of paint and creativity, you can turn it into this futuristic wrench. So now you got some tools, you can set dress with that. Old Brita filters, these make great sci-fi hand grenades. I'll also be using these as fuel pods in our spaceship's engine room. And if you need some sci-fi weaponry, Nerf guns with a little bit of a makeover can be excellent sci-fi blasters. And believe it or not, I'm gonna show you how to make a flamethrower out of these old wasabi pea tins. But I'll go into more detail on that on videos exclusive to our Patreon page.
To deck out the set flats, I just attached the greebles in place. I really didn't have a plan for this, so I sort of just eyeballed it as I went. Then I applied different colored base coats to each piece just to give it more character. Then I added some aging effects by dusting it with a flat black spray paint and adding some rust buildup. This was actually an Oreo tray, but now you'd never know it. I used this black plastic chicken wire I found and a cardboard tube to separate the two sections. This kept the set open, and motivationally it feels like a safety partition. I applied hot glue to create dripping grease effects in various parts of the ship. I used black glue as the base, and I painted over it with this drab muddy green color. Alright, to hide my giant toolbox, I wrapped it in a gray Fernie pad that had this zigzag stitching that made it look like some sort of machinery wrapped in a sci-fi insulating fabric. Then I covered it with this plastic tray that I found on the street. I'm not sure what it is, but the bottom had this awesome texture, and it looked great when I dry brushed it with some cheap silver paint. For the top of the toolbox, I took this riser I built for my desk a while ago but no longer use, and I cut the sides at an angle to give it a slope for more of a control panel look. I drilled holes in a piece of scrap acrylic to fit my Brita filter fuel pods in, and I cut a square out of the control panel so we could light this section from behind and add smoke cryo type effects for when you remove a fuel pod. I made this control box out of some MDF scraps and painted it to match the ship's aesthetic. Then I attached this piece from my failed 3D print bin. Yes, you should keep those happy accidents because you never know when they'll come in handy. I slapped on some warning tape that I got at the dollar store. This was 99 cents well spent because I added these little accents all over the ship. I made knobs out of old spray paint can nozzles and even salvaged these lights from that boiler room panel that I showed you earlier. Now, rather than wiring everything up, just to make it easier and safer, I stuck this cheap 10 bulb string of Christmas lights in there, also from the dollar store. I found these random glass discs with rubber edges, so I printed some pictures of gauges and glued them underneath. I added a layer of dirt on top, and I gotta say, this looks pretty cool when lit up. To add little details, I generated these random warning labels and printed them on sticker paper, and pretty much just placed them in areas where I thought there might actually be warning labels. And as with everything else, I dirtied them up. They don't call me Dirty Wordy for nothing. Here's a great filmmaking trick for making cheap background signage. You design a 2D image of the sign that looks three-dimensional, and you glue it to a piece of foam core. From a distance, on camera this looks like an embossed metal sign, but at a fraction of the cost. I found a free working TV on the street, which was exactly what I needed for our monitoring station. I built a wooden frame to fit over it. For more detail on building a frame, check out our Harry Potter moving portrait video. I adorned the frame with greebles and I mounted the TV vertically so it looked less like a TV and more like a monitor. To connect the TV to the control panel, I screwed a spray paint cap to the frame and I attached this vacuum hose which looks like a high voltage cable housing. For the monitor graphics, I did this the simple and easy way with no animation skills needed. I just generated sci-fi images, arranged them how I wanted in Photoshop, and made 2 layers. One with the images in monochrome green and an overlay with some parts in red. Then in Resolve, I added the green layer to my timeline and just pasted snippets of the red layer on top to give a flashing effect. And voila! A quick and easy ship monitoring system. I wanted to add a cryosleep pod, so I whipped this up out of a plastic sheet from a cheap IKEA poster frame and a corrugated plastic sign that I scored on the back so I could make it into a curve. I dressed it with some paint and used frost spray and fake snow in a can on the window edges to get that cryogenic freezer look. I don't know what the heck this thing is, but I cut some frosted acrylic and shiny bubble wrap to make this overhead light fixture. It doesn't make sense to be empty, so I cut a scrap of MDF in the shape of a body to act as a bed. I added foam for a pillow, then wrapped it in an old Fernie pad. The final touch was adding an aged chest strap for sleeping in 0G. I threw some lights on it and called it done.
So I was walking my dog down the alley when I saw one of the local businesses had a bunch of pallets outside. When I asked them if they were going in the trash, they said yes. I asked if I could have them, and they said sure. So now we got a floor to our spaceship set.
The pallets were different sizes, so I started by Tetrising them in place to find the right configuration. My first attempt to light the floor with a rope light I found in the yard was a total failure because it was nowhere near bright enough. Plan B was to lay down some white poster board and tape down some leftover LED strips to the floor. Then I put some diffusion in the middle cavity of the pallets to help spread the light more. Put the pallets back in place and crossed my fingers I didn't crush any LEDs and... What I really love about this effect is that it helps sell that there's another level below. All right, it's time for the big reveal. But Houston, we have a problem. Apparently the only thing we lost in the move was all the footage of the finished set. That's right, we're not there anymore. This is all fake. And yeah, that means that we don't have any footage of me giving a tour, showing off all the details of the set, Flater in her Ripley costume, and our little movie clips that we shot to show how cinematic the set looks on film. Those were really cool. I'm really bummed we're missing those. Now, we're not sure what happened. Maybe the card is missing or it got formatted before it was backed up. Happens to the best of us. But luckily we do have a ton of photos on our phone and a few video clips. So enjoy this little slideshow presentation we put together for you. All right, here she is, the second fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy. We've got our main console here. That circular part at the top is actually the water pump from my car. Pro tip, when getting parts replaced, if you ask for them, you can keep the old parts. Then we got our Brita filter fuel pods. Now I want to pause here to point out how the display on the screen matches the pods layout. This shows the operator which pods need replacing. In this video, it was shot before I animated it though, so it's just a still image. I made that light out of a part that looks like one of those bank drive-through thingies, and I wrapped a tube light in some parchment paper, stuck it inside. On the back wall, you'll notice the cover for that car water pump. In the rear section, I have this forklift tank that I found and attached a vacuum hose and handle to create sort of this welding tool, and I completed that with an old motorcycle helmet my friend was throwing away. On this wall, you can spot our egg cartons and a Listerine bottle I cut in half, as well as an old fan cover and more plastic Reebles. And of course, we have our cryo sleep pod. I didn't get to tape the scores on the back, so we got some light spilling through. Here we have our foam panel back wall and our catwalk floor with the walker turned ladder that gets you down to the next level. On the opposite side, we have our equipment wall with hoses and tools, our painted Nerf gun, the flamethrower, and again, all of this is just made out of junk. In this wide shot, I want to point out the cover I made for that existing overhead light. Like the cryopod, it's that corrugated plastic sheeting. I cut it into a futuristic design and painted it to match. At the top here, you'll also notice I took a piece of MDF and drilled large holes in it to create a fake steel girder. Now, I'm no DP or even a gaffer, but notice how the light catches the various greebles? This is why we want to create texture on the walls, because it looks so cool. Now, we lost our mini movie footage, but we gotta show Andrea in her Ripley cosplay. I mean, dang, look at that makeup contouring. She looks just like Sigourney Weaver. And she did an amazing job recreating the zero-G flight suit details on the back. We have a whole video coming soon of the making of this cosplay, so hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. Oh, and we shot this awesome scene where we filled the chamber with fog and used a shop vac to quickly suck it out as she wakes up. It looked so cool. Speaking of fog, the set looked even more incredible with a little atmosphere, but sadly that footage has evaporated like smoke. And of course, we had to do some new boot goofing and do a photo shoot in our Geek Garage outfits. Now, just a reminder, this is what it looked like before. And just to recap, this was all built from upcycled junk. The only thing I really bought for this set was a few boxes of drywall screws, some 1x3s for the set flat, a couple cans of metallic spray paint, and a few items from the dollar store. So building a set of your own doesn't have to break the bank. Oh, and a big thanks to my dad for doing a cameo in this video. We'll see you guys on the next one.